In episode number 336 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the third Batman TMNT crossover with the third part.
We also have a farewell to Batfleck from Zack Snyder. We'll be reading his tweet right here.
Our comic book highlight this week includes Sharkey The Bounty Hunter #1 from Image Comics and also from Mark Millar.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am Chandler Daniel.
And I'm Emperor Kelli.
To anyone new to the show, first we go over the news. This is the format of the podcast. And then we head on over into our Patreon shoutouts where we give our thank yous to everyone that makes the show possible. And finally, we end it with a review, this week being Sharkey the Bounty Hunter #1.
We have a whole lot of comic news for you this week. First up, we're going to talk about X-Men Grand Design Extinction #1 and 2. Returning to the book will be writer and artist Ed Piskor.
I've been really liking X-Men Grand Design. It is one of the issues, one of the series from Marvel that I will share the heck out of on our various social networking sites because the artwork is gorgeous. It is essentially a comprehensive history of the X-Men comic books, and the 3 different volumes that he's done, with the 3rd volume coming up, breaks down the X-Men's comics throughout the different centuries, throughout the different, decades of the history of the mutants. And with this one, with Extinction, he's going to cover the mid-'80s over to the early '90s where you had characters like Longshot and Cable. So I'm hoping we see some kind of reference maybe to the Jim Lee artwork and maybe even the Jim Lee covers.
I'm sure you will. Do you know what I think of Longshot and Cable?
You don't like those characters, do you?
Who cares? I'm glad that you're enjoying this. I don't read the X-Men comics, but this sounds like it's really interesting if you are an X-Men fan.
The kind of crime behind Grand Design is whenever they reprint these issues, they put them in this oversized book, which is great and all, but they're a little bit pricey, and you don't get a lot of issues because he does do them in these 2-issue runs. I think he did one of them in 3 issues. But I'm still waiting for when they compile all of these together, which it sounds like they will once they're finally done with Extinction, put them into one trade paperback, not a huge hardcover like he's done with the Hip Hop Family Tree, but something a little bit smaller, a little bit more digestible, kind of like the exact comics that we're coming out with in that size. And then I think it'd be a lot more sellable to more people, especially as a lot of readers will ask me, hey, I'm looking for the origin of, and then you include any X-Men character, pretty much, I can point them to this comprehensive Grand Design book.
What's Hip Hop Family Tree?
It's exactly kind of like what he's doing with X-Men now, but with the world of hip-hop. So he did a history with the different artists and his style, and this came out years ago, and I remember it doing pretty okay. It was one of those indie titles that a lot of readers would get, and it was also presented in that large hardcover format. Because of that, it wouldn't sell as often, so I'm taking that into account when considering carrying these X-Men trades.
Well, for me, I don't think, hip-hop artist, let me go buy that comic book.
It's actually pretty neat. Like, I guess they enjoy it, but also indie writers or indie readers really like it. And for me, it's just the fact that he takes these characters and translates it so well to these original panels that it's gorgeous to look at, and it's a really extensive read, but a good one. Even for someone like me, who's not really big into the X-Men, unless it's with Fox losing the X-Men, then I'm suddenly the greatest X-Men fan of all time. But when I'm reading this, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. It really breaks it down so well for any reader that maybe hasn't read X-Men or has lost their way since the 90s in the world of X-Men.
You know what's even more awesome than X-Men, though? But I mean, besides myself, because I knew that's what you were going to say.
So what's the next step down?
The next step down is Batman TMNT III, which is returning yet again with writers James Tynion IV and artist Freddie Williams II.
So you're telling me that this could potentially be the 3rd animated movie, maybe 8 years from now, if that crossover does really well? Well, the first one is still releasing. The first animated movie that we covered last week.
Yeah.
Coming out this year.
Okay.
If that's successful, how long is it going to take for them to make part 2?
Like a year or two.
All right. So 2
Okay.
more years from now. So, and then after that, let's say that one's good.
Then let's say that's even another 2 years. That's only 6 years, 4 years.
It's going to be like 8 years.
5 years. Calm down.
Especially once they negotiate these
Calm
things.
yourselves.
Issue number 1 of this third crossover between IDW and DC Comics is set to release on May as a 6-issue miniseries. The very first day in May kicks off with Batman TMNT 3.
We do have a quote here from Freddie Williams II, who said, quote, "The story for Volume 3 is a blast, and I am having the time of my life illustrating it. And lucky for me, I'm not alone in this grand task. I'm having a huge and exciting personal crossover of my own with one of my all-time heroes and favorite artist, Kevin Eastman. Say what? Yep, you heard that right. We've got something so fun and exciting planned." End quote.
Are we going to see the crossover between the original Turtles and these Turtles and Batman?
Who knows? The cool thing about this, right, is they can pretty much do anything. The Turtles, we've obviously seen them cross over into other worlds where they've seen themselves and other art styles, right? There was that episode, remember, where they were all over the place? So it's not outside the realm of possibility for them to see other Batmans, for them to see other Turtles. Like, the sky's the limit.
So with this release of this crossover, this year actually marks the 80 years of Batman as we know, with Detective Comics 1000 releasing next month on the 27th. But this is also TMNT's 35th year anniversary.
Aww.
So why not do another crossover? It matches up perfectly.
And it was fantastic, not just because we like both of them. It really was great.
I do love that IDW is so willing to play nice with these other publishers and cross over so much. Really, a lot of publishers are willing to do these crossovers. And unfortunately, I think Marvel is really the only player in the game, aside from Boom Studios, that does not want to cross over with anyone else but themselves. But that's fine. Leave the Turtles to DC and let's cross over with Batman.
Crossovers make so much sense, though, because then you're pulling fans from 2 different franchises, right? And potentially getting them on something else.
Sometimes. Like, I remember when the first Batman TMNT series came out, the hardcore Batman readers, I had like 2 or 3 subs that were like, ugh. Tipter would look down on this fucking series, like, ugh, silliness. And then 4 months later, do you still have issues of that crossover?
Of course.
Like, yeah, this is legit. This isn't just a cash grab, man.
This is amazing.
I understand the thought of they're sullying Batman with a lesser thing. It's like, well, no, it's almost as cool as Batman. Maybe slightly.
Well, you're also raising this other thing with Batman. Batman never gets sullied. There's at no point where something brings Batman. Batman only raises things.
Raises all ships.
Yes, raises them to a greater level. Like, realistically, is there anything they could put with Batman that you would say is lessened Batman?
What about if it crossed over into the live-action Justice League film? Would that be a lesser Batman, or would he somehow be making?
He would make Justice League better.
Yeah, I've got nothing then.
Go ahead.
That is it.
You're right. Like, even you could do like Batman and My Little Pony. Boom, Batman makes My Little Pony better. You'd have like Batman ponies running around.
All his Robins,
Yes.
all new Robins. Can you ride one around?
Of course he would. No, they would ride him because that's how cool he is. Like piggyback.
Tanya the Fourth has stated that this is the final crossover between the two, at least in this particular storyline. So this will wrap all of this series into a conclusion, and then we'll see the Turtles say goodbye to Batman, Robin, other Robin, which is Nightwing, Batgirl, and the rest of the Bat family, including Alfred.
And then a year later, we'll see them team up again because this is too good to just bury it forever.
Moving on forward with exclusively DC Comics news, originally announced as a 3-issue, 48-page series. You remember Batman The Last Night on Earth? We talked about it almost a year ago, and we had not heard any news from it. But now we know that it is actually coming out. We did get a solicitation, but it's going to be printed as a standard comic Still under Black Label, but under the regular size.
So it's not going to be that weirdo size that we have to buy a weirdo bag and board so that it won't fit in your box?
It's not weirdo. It's only magazine size, and I like it because they can charge more, and I upsell people on the magazine bag and board. It also sticks out well on the shelves. I think DC punked out by not doing these Black Label books in that magazine size.
This book is going to be telling, just like the title says, the final night of Batman, his final story. But it will have the combined team of Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Jonathan Glapion, and FCO Placencia.
According to Capullo, Scott, and himself, this is going to be the last Batman story that they team up for. It'll be a while. Like, they'll team up again in the future, but I think he's saying that they're going to take a break from Batman moving forward, and maybe Greg will go back to Reborn. Hopefully we get some more of that series, but this is sort of it for them, at least for the time being. And as I mentioned before, it is still under the Black Label line, and issue 1 releases on May 29th. And so far, this is the only one, especially since we haven't heard of 3 Jokers. We had the other history of the DC Universe get canceled, and haven't seen that come back either. So maybe this is the last Black Label book. I hope not. I want to see the 3 Jokers come out, but I wanted all of these to be in that bigger format because of the artwork, no ads, nicer paper, or at least the cover itself, but it's still releasing, still getting the comic. I'm still reading it.
It's unfortunate that the bat penis ruined all these things for us.
You mean the people being afraid of the bat penis?
The people being turned on by the bat penis and afraid by their own personal reaction?
Awakening inner feelings in everyone, in criminals throughout Gotham?
Awakened their bat penis?
Would he be more effective if he just ran around, pants down, underwear down?
Yeah. Because people would be like, oh, no.
I'm scared, but I'm not scared. I'm oddly comforted.
I'm scared, but it feels so right.
Do you remember the basic premise on this one with Batman walking around with the Joker's head in a jar and the Joker's talking to him the whole time?
That's terrifying.
It kind of is. Do you think it's going to be Batman losing his mind and kind of the Joker talking to him?
Isn't Batman always losing his mind?
Yeah, I mean, he is a crazy guy. He's just as insane as everyone else in Arkham.
Yes. I'm pretty sure the Joker's not really alive talking to him.
Weirder things have happened. I mean, we've seen the bat penis. So.
That wasn't that weird. It was just a normal bat penis.
If a year ago someone had told you, we're going to see Batman's penis in a comic book, would you believe it?
I would have thought it'd be more impressive than what they gave us.
Moving forward, though, we do have some movie news from Shazam. Den of Geeks had an interview with producer Peter Safran, who confirmed that the movie will, in fact, have a post-credits scene.
We have a movie quote here from Safran, which reads, quote, "It's probably the same decision-making that one has on all of these movies, which is what's going to be fun, what's going to be satisfying for the audience, what's going to be a nice punctuation mark at the end of the movie. We had a lot of options. I think we ended up with something good," end quote.
Any speculation at all as to what this could be?
I think we're going to see Black Adam.
Still going with Black Adam,
Yeah,
huh?
probably.
I know a lot of people have been saying that they're gonna not use Black Adam. There might have been a quote from a producer or maybe the director that said, if you're gonna introduce Black Adam, you do it in his own film. You don't do it as a subset to the Shazam movie. So people immediately ruled out Black Adam, but I'm thinking maybe the Superman cameo is gonna be the post-credits film.
That would be
scene.
really cool.
I've also heard rumors that based on these negotiations between Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers, that they've done an extra, because he's already, I mean, come on, he's filmed a scene for Shazam, but whether or not they use it depends on whether or not he re-ups on a contract. So there's rumors now that, and take it with a grain of salt, that they've done another scene without Cavill of Superman where you don't really see him, kind of like they did with Supergirl.
Right.
And that'll be the Superman cameo until they find another Superman or decide not to use him again in the future.
You couldn't
again,
go with another Superman?
I know, Henry Cavill's amazing, but it's kind of like, well, Ben Affleck's not coming back. Did Henry Cavill sign on for that same plan that Zack Snyder had? But it sounds like Henry's a little more willing to stay on board than I guess Ben had in the last year or so.
Well, yeah, because Ben had more dollars from previous movies, and Henry, not really. He needs Superman.
He's coming off of Mission Impossible, though. That movie did amazing. They're actually saying that he's worth more now because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Give him more dollars. Keep him on as Superman. My dad will be happy.
Wouldn't it be crazy if Mission Impossible cost, like, the Superman role? Because the DC fans, the DC Belugas went out and supported it. Mission Impossible, they want to see Henry Cavill. They want to see him do well. And then by that being so successful, now he may not be Superman.
Now he needs more dollars. They're not going to pay
He's
it.
Pricier.
Who would they? I don't know. I don't even want to think about it. Hopefully he signs on and we see him at the end of Shazam.
Well, the Shazam news got a little bit more heated this week.
Ooh.
There was a tweet from a fan who directly sent this to director David Sandberg, and it said, quote, Shazam releases on 5th of April. It's less than 2 months now, and we have yet now received a Shazam proper trailer. I think English was his second language, so I'm doing my best here. Every time we fans ask you for the trailer, you give a savage and sarcastic reply and change the topic. Aquaman released 3 trailers. I don't know what's the problem. End quotes. So an entitled fan asking for a trailer?
Right. Where's my trailer? Because I'm not hyped enough for this movie that I'm definitely going to go see.
You don't need the... Okay, I want to rage after what David says.
David replied, quote, I just don't have any specific trailer updates that I can share with you at this point. All I could do is have fun with it or say nothing. Most of the time I do the latter. But like you say, the movie is almost here and it's not like the marketing is going to slow down now. End quote.
If you're a listener that has done this, stop it. Do not tweet the director of any movie, whether it's this or any movie in the future, asking for a trailer. It is not the director's job. They don't go ahead and release it now. It's all the studio.
Release the trailer.
All the studio. The directors have no power over that marketing. The whole marketing department's way out of their league. You think they actually have, Chris Nolan back when the Dark Knight trilogy, like, hey, Chris, what do you think we should do in this trailer next? No, they don't even
He's flying on rooftops. That was all Chris Nolan, guys, I'm sure.
It just drives me nuts because it's not the first time. I'm sure David has said it before where he's like, I have no say in the trailer or any trailers. Don't stop tweeting to him. And the other thing too, you don't need the fucking trailer if you're going to go see the movie already. The purpose of the trailer is to sell the tickets to people that are on the fence of watching this movie. How often do you hear people say, I wasn't too sure about the movie, but then I saw the trailer and now I'm sold. But instead, people want this Shazam trailer. They're already going to go see it.
Right.
We're going to go see it. We don't need another Shazam trailer. I'm not going out there and looking up all these TV spots. Even for Justice League, I wasn't doing that because we want to see as much in the film as we can. What's the point of watching these trailers? To get more excited for something we're already going to go see? That makes no sense to me. Just wait for it, see everything fresh. You're already sold. The trailer's not for you. And in this case, they're waiting for the trailer so that they can then whine that they showed too much of Shazam in the trailer. Oh, now they showed too much. They did the same thing with Batman v Superman. They kept asking trailer after trailer. Oh, they're not really showing anything. And just whatever fucking bullshit the Marvel sheep were saying, they were doing it with BVS. And then as soon as they showed Doomsday in that final trailer, oh, well, now they showed too much. This is what they want to happen in Shazam. And we haven't gotten a ton of shots with Sivana, at least in action. We've gotten some, but not a whole lot. And we want to save that for the fucking movie. If they have the rest of the Captain Marvel family actually transforming, I want to see that in the movie. I don't want to see it in a fucking trailer.
If I could stand up and slow clap for you, I would.
What are your thoughts? What do you think?
No, I agree 100%. Just like you said, the point of a trailer is to get you excited for the movie, right? All these people already know they're going to go see it, so why do you need a trailer to get more excited?
Have you started doing here's a fun way to fuck with MCU sheep, is refer to the Shazam movie as Captain Marvel. And then anytime they're like, oh yeah, that looks so great, and say, yeah, I love the trailer when they're coming out of the convenience store, then drinking beer. Huh? That's Shazam. No, that's Captain Marvel. I'm talking original, right? Captain Marvel. You just kind of educate them a little bit because most people don't actually know about that.
Right.
Because it's the action movies of today. They just watch the movies and that's it. So that's
I'll
something
have to
fun.
Start doing that.
All the listeners too, give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. I do it at the shop all the time when they're like, and who's this? I'm like, oh, that's Captain Marvel. We have a little statue, one of the PVC figures, and they point to Shazam Captain Marvel, and they're like, who's that? I say Captain Marvel. Oh, cool. And because the movie hasn't come out yet, they're not going, that's not Captain Marvel.
Oh. But soon
they will. It's going to pay off well. Or now he's going to remember it, go see Captain Marvel and say, wait a second, I thought that was a guy with black hair.
This isn't a man.
As we mentioned in the opening of the show, we have a message from Zack Snyder as he posted on his Vero account saying his farewell to Ben Affleck with a quote saying, "There was a time above, a time before. There were perfect things, diamond absolutes. But things fall, things on earth, and what falls is fallen. In the dream, it took me to the light. A beautiful lie. Best Batman ever. Thank you for blessing me with that fucking glorious chin and an amazing heart." End quote.
Can I have the little bongo drums like in the poetry reading?
It is poetry. It's straight out of Batman v Superman, that opening scene. And it's the opening line in the movie, and it's Batfleck. So it's appropriate that he says his farewell with Ben's first lines in the DCEU, which is the beautiful lie. And that's also, I think, perfect for Zack to say, because it kind of reflects that jaded nature that he and the rest of us fans have now with Warner Brothers, with the fact that we're not seeing a Snyder cut anytime soon, apparently, or at least yet, as of now, we're not getting it. And now we're not getting any more Ben Affleck as Batman. So it is a beautiful lie. It is sad. And it's even more of a confirmation that we're definitely not getting Ben. I know last time we said that, well, maybe he'll come back in a future film, and this is just a one movie. That apparently not. I think this is really the final nail in the coffin of Zack Snyder, who's already out of this, going, "It's all right, Ben. Thank you so much. You were an amazing Batman."
That's so sad. I'm still holding out hope he'll show up in something. Just let me have my hope.
The other thing that Zack, he's been super active now, especially on Twitter, where he'll just disappear for months at a time, but still be posting on Vero, is someone asked him, "Hey, boss man," they actually asked him on Vero, "was the Flashpoint story something that we were going to visit, in fact?" And he responded with something better. And that's all he gave us, and we're just like, even more destroyed into smaller pieces, with him giving us more and more hints as to, no, this was the other plan. This was the rest of it.
Right.
And it's almost like the more he gives us, the less of a chance we're ever going to see any of this. I mean, at what point can it just say, here's the layout of everything in specifics, in full detail? Here's the original script to Justice League. Can he do any of this? What are the contract parameters? Like, we're so thirsty for these answers. And instead, like, as we learn more, we're just getting more hurt and not negative, but jaded. I know some of the DC belugas have been constantly tweeted at Warner Brothers, but I mean, we are kind of upset. We're upset at bloggers. We're upset at reviewers, the MCU sheep, because especially now, people like Umberto are saying things, putting up these pictures of Deathstroke fighting Batman, like a Photoshop thing. And it's a Deathstroke from the Arkham games, but it's also the same one that they were going to plan to use in Ben Affleck's script. And he puts that up like should've, would've, whatever, could've been, as if he also wanted to see this. And people immediately called him out like, no, it's because of people like you and your fucking associates that we don't get this universe. This is the fucking bed you made. You fucking lay in it. Don't act now like all the rest of these people now of, no, Ben was great. I really did want to see that. It's like, fuck yourself. You're the ones bitching about the entire DC universe. These movies are now catered to you. So I guess enjoy that shit. Justice League should have been for you. And instead, you guys didn't even go see that. So fuck off with that nonsense. I just don't like that these bloggers are acting like this is the thing they really wanted to see. It's like, it's from the beginning, you did not want any of this. You guys wanted this universe to fail. You wanted it, no matter how good it was, no matter how solid it was, no matter how much of a plan the man had. And clearly we've seen that there was a bigger plan to this universe. Did not matter. They wanted to see it fall in its face.
Do you ever think that we'll get the whole Snyder story animated?
There's been rumors of that, not necessarily from anyone, but people have been saying, well, what if we see a comic book? What if we see an animated thing? But I heard on DC Films Hub, they were talking about this exact thing, but they mentioned that this will only make people want to see the live action versions more, that it won't really satisfy that. It'll just say, well, now we could have seen this in live action, even if it's a graphic novel. We could have seen that in the big screen with Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot, and now we're not getting it. So it's almost best that we maybe only get the Snyder Cut, but I don't even know if we'll get that, because if it's building so much on what was going to be Justice League 2, then they can't release it.
I get the frustration of not seeing it on the big screen, right? But wouldn't you at least want to have it animated so you can see the story? I don't know. I feel like the story is probably solid enough that I would rather have the story and know what it was going to be and see it in a comic book or animated rather than not have it at all.
I think it is something very sellable that they can definitely move these original graphic novels, let's say, even not even an animated film, but it won't be done until, if it ever happens, until after we've rebooted the current DCEU. I don't think they're going to risk, especially now with Aquaman being $1 billion movie.
$1 billion.
They're not going to risk any of this with saying, well, this is what could have been, because then people will be like, hey, wait a second, then what's all this coming out? Once this all ends and it reboots, then maybe, so I'm guessing 20 years from now, we'll get that story of what Zack Snyder would have done.
I'll be so old. And we'll still be talking about the Snyder Cut on the podcast.
Probably. Twitter will still be around, right?
I'm sure, yeah. How long's it been around compared to MySpace? I feel like MySpace wasn't there that long.
I feel like it's still around, so, I mean, it's been around longer.
Nobody uses it.
Artists do. Songwriters. Not as much as before, but...
Weirdos. I miss MySpace.
Speaking of a couple of weirdos, we saw the pilot to Doom Patrol on DC Universe, and we are going to talk about it here. It is a spoiler-filled, not review, but our thoughts on this first episode of Doom Patrol. So if you have DC Universe, it is up now, and I think by the time this episode releases, episode 1 or 2, whatever they technically consider it, the not pilot, the first episode of the season, will have released.
First up, the actors. We have the character of Crazy Jane, as played by Diane Guerrero. I feel like I've seen her in something else before.
She looks very familiar.
Very familiar. I need to look it up. We have Elastigirl, who's a blob girl, really, played by April Bowlby. Robot Man is Brendan Fraser, back from wherever he's been for all these years.
He's making his comeback, and I'm rooting for him.
I'm rooting for him, too. We also have Chief, as played by Timothy Dalton. Negative Man is Matt Bomer, and Eric Morden is Alan Tudyk.
I know the Firefly fans and Joe Whedon fans know exactly who he is, because he was in that show.
He was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
he plays
where I know him from. He's the pilot guy.
Washburn?
I don't know. He plays the pilot. I knew he looked familiar.
So this first pilot episode is all about the hook, the heart of this pilot is Robot Man, as played by Brendan Fraser, which, as you mentioned, might be his return back to TV or movies, whatever he's trying to do with this career now.
He ran out of money, so he came back.
I don't know if he ran out of money. I just don't think he was getting signed on. I'm sure he had a couple of flops that weren't really hitting anymore. I mean, The Mummy. What else got as big as The Mummy for him after that franchise ended? Nothing really.
Was he in Scooby-Doo? No, that was Freddie Prinze Jr.
Never seen people get confused, those two actors.
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
But this, from beginning to end, is all about Robot Man. It's about him learning to walk. It's about his backstory. It's about the faults that he went through. And then as he is also learning and the years are going by, we're sort of getting a little bit of all of the other characters, just enough to, I guess, satisfy the audience that would have been for this pilot. And we saw a little bit of their origin also, or at least explain that Titans episode. And I don't think the Chief was the same actor. I didn't look anything like...
it was different.
And I'm guessing Timothy Dalton is the Chief moving forward. I'm guessing they filmed that before they did Doom Patrol. But this ended up being, I think, a strong first episode to this series. I know we had very little interest in the Doom Patrol comic books and the series, but we wanted to see this because of that Titans series or that episode, and because we have a subscription to DC Universe.
Exactly like you said, very, very strong pilot. You do follow Robot Man for most of it, but you still get the origins of the other. I think they spent a good amount of time on the rest of them And Robot Man's story just had me in tears. I was like, stop it, Doom Patrol. I can't handle it. So definitely got you feeling. I think for every single character, except for maybe Crazy Jane, I didn't really care about her.
Mhm.
I was like, all right, you're crazy. I get it.
Right.
Stop being crazy.
And maybe the pilot guy, the mummy.
No, I liked him because he was, spoilers, making out with that guy behind the
I like
car.
him because he's gay.
Yeah, let him. He already felt like a monster. And now he looks like one outside. I'm like, you were just gay. It's okay. It's all right now. It's 2018, 2019.
Yeah, I think those were the two characters I was like, yeah. Also, Elastigirl's kind of a bitch still. Like when she was in the diner talking about, well, tell me more about me. Like she didn't really learn too much over the years.
Yeah, I think she'll learn more as she goes, right? Because she went from, she doesn't really know why, she felt a little bad about what she did, but she doesn't really know why she's this hideous thing now. And so then she just locked herself away, and she's just been locked away the whole time. So she still doesn't know how to interact with people.
I love the chief, Timothy Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
Like he feels like such a great father figure to these characters, like a mentor,
Except
a teacher.
He's a jerk. Let me hide your whole life from you.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's for his own good.
No.
He knows he has to be the bad guy sometimes for the betterment of Robot Man.
Poor Robot Man. He just wants his daughter.
I don't know if it's because it was a pilot episode, but I think the special effects were lacking a bit compared to what we saw in Titans.
Mm-hmm.
I think those maybe had a higher budget because it is Titans and this is Doom Patrol. But as the series continues, I'm guessing that those are going to sharpen up. They're going to look better. When Elastigirl was running around town, did not look right.
No.
And then there was something else that caught my...
When Crazy Jane turned into a fire thing?
Yeah, that looked terrible.
Yeah,
that did not look good.
That was real bad.
And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but when Robot Man is sitting on the couch, we saw his whole body was just a robot, but you can see him breathing, like the actor underneath like his belly.
There was one point where he was sitting there and one eye was lit up and the other wasn't. And I'm like, that's weird.
Well, yeah, I mean... I was trying to see inside his mask because I thought I saw like someone talking or moving in there. I'm like, wait a second.
Doom Patrol, what are you doing?
But again, I'm like, that's the pilot. Let's just see what happens.
Just let it go.
The story makes up for it more than enough. If you're looking for the production value of Titans, so far this pilot, I don't think delivered quite on that level. But the story was definitely there. I don't think it's as dark as Titans.
No, not nearly. They do a lot of humor. It's definitely not for kids. You see boobs and butts, and they say fuck a lot.
Yeah, it is a Netflix show, essentially, but on the DC Universe side. So if you watch Titans, I think this is a little bit more explicit than that, but somehow not as dark, if that makes any sense.
It's much more explicit, but yes, you're right, not as dark. Robot Man brings a lot of lightness to it.
I think all the characters do. There's not too much darkness in any of them, really. Like maybe the Chief a little bit, but even him.
Maybe
like,
Crazy Jane.
Yeah, but when she switches to a regular personality, she's kind of encouraging Robot Man to do more, and they're smoking weed.
But then she becomes Hammerhead. Nah.
I'm gonna rip you a new asshole.
Yeah, fucking cops, the popos.
What was her relation to everyone else, to the Chief?
I don't know. She just shows up. She called him Dad once, but I don't know that she actually is. I think he took her in and she goes out and does her own thing, and just shows up when she feels like it. They didn't dive into her backstory, right? They just said she has 26 personalities and they all come with different powers. That's all we got.
I was a little confused as to what Eric Morden's, I guess, motivation is behind the Doom Patrol. Maybe we're going to get more of that in the next episode, but his actual effects where he's kind of splintered up and you see the light in between, I thought that was really cool. I thought it was really well done. And if that was like the rough portion of it, it's going to look even sharper then from here on forward. I've never seen that kind of effect on television or in movies, so I thought that was really a unique way to portray this villain. And I don't know if that's how they did it in the comic books or not, because we have not read those. We read the first preview kind of comic to the Young Animals line, but it didn't really catch us. And I know we had gotten the first issue of each of those, but again, the sales showed that people weren't really reading it. So I don't know what liberties they've taken with all of these characters, but so far, I think we're pretty much hooked on most of their stories.
I really like what they did with Morden, too, because you kind of follow his story through the whole thing also. He's narrating, And you're like, yeah, this guy is pretty cool. Psyche, he's the villain. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Opening up this portal here. Why? Because the end.
Because I want to fuck with you. Look at this donkey. Farting words in the air.
That's probably, I'm guessing, another comic book thing.
Probably.
That we just haven't seen.
Right.
I'd say if you're in the foreign market and eventually this hits Netflix, it is worth watching, at least the pilot. From what we've said, the show's so far worth checking out. If you have DC Universe, of course, check it out. Why not?
Absolutely.
It's exclusive to that app and you're paying for it, so check it out. I won't say we're going to go pick up comics because of it yet, but I'm excited to check out the next episode of Doom Patrol. But with that, let's head into the Brocat Block, which is where Kelli and I have been this week, and we're also going to answer some listener questions.
On a personal level, for me, it's been a pretty slow week. Oh, I did. So my parents went out of town, so I had to watch our kid, right? Had to take off to watch our kid. And they said, how's Leo doing? So I took a picture of him sleeping, holding a whiskey bottle. And I said, I think you should watch him from now on. And they laughed.
Did you send them the other ones where
he's all tied up? Yes, I did send them that. They laughed too.
I think the biggest thing that happened on my end, aside from allergies coming back yet again on time, is that we put in our final orders, as I tweeted out, of Detective Comics 1000, and it's at the comic shop. And it's one of those things where no matter what we put in, the numbers are going to be wrong.
Of course.
I order every single one of those covers, every shop, order too many or not enough. Because there's no telling how many are actually going to sell at the end of the day. So you kind of look at, what I did is I looked at the pre-orders, and it turns out that the Jim Lee one had the most pre-orders, which is the main cover.
Of course.
And then the Frank Miller one, which is the 80s. The Joker one from Bruce Timm also had a ton of pre-orders, not as much as Frank Miller's. And Greg Capullo's 2010s had a ton of pre-orders as well. Everything else was kind of more or less leveled out, with the least of them being the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. Those did not have as many pre-orders, so it was one of those like, all right, how many of these copies do we want to hit the wall? And what's probably going to end up happening is, as we get closer to March 27th, people will be like, oh yeah, I still have to pre-order those. And they'll come in, pre-order a ton of them. And I don't know if I'll have any hit the wall at that point, except for the Jim Lee one.
You snooze, you lose.
I'm kind of hoping that I can put in an advanced reorder of like, oh crap, we're going to need more of these. And maybe we receive them and maybe we don't. But if you did not put in your order for your comic shop at this point for your covers, don't expect to get what you asked for moving forward. Hopefully they ordered extras, as most of us did, but by the time you put in your orders, maybe they've pre-outed out those extras. And I don't know how big Detective is going to be. I know we were suggested like, okay, look at your sales of Action 1000. But for my particular store, we've, pretty much doubled in business over the last year. Right. And Superman's not Batman. So even then it's not going to be accurate. And it's also, the covers are way different than Action 1000s. I do still think that Action had the more appealing variants compared to Batman's, which is really weird. I kind of hope that the detective variants would all be like 100%. And while I am getting most of them, I'm also going to online retailers that went ahead and ordered up on the exclusivities like Archerms, and getting these other ones that I think would have been stronger covers for retailers than the exclusivity. But why not give it to the retailer that is going to pony up on those thousands of copies that we're definitely not, to get that exclusive cover and hopefully sell online?
The moral of the story is, if you haven't pre-ordered your cover, go now. Drop what you're doing and go, and you may still not get it.
There you go. So let's head into listener questions. The first one comes from @insmouth_tide, and he had several questions on here. So the first one is, what is a comic you reread? Something we go back on, something we kind of constantly revisit. I think a lot of these answers are going to be the same for me. It's like Superman Red Sun. Batman the Court of Owls, Batman Adventures Mad Love, the Batman Hush even sometimes. Not the Dark Knight Returns. I actually don't think I own it, oddly enough.
I don't think you do either. We've read it, but I don't think we own it.
We have read it. I like the that's one of those things where, much like All-Star Superman, I like the animated adaptation more than the original work, which I know for a lot of people is blasphemy to say, but they're both good. I just prefer the
just get out.
I think Weller's going to be at MegaCon, by the way.
Yeah?
I'm going to take my copy of Dark Knight Returns
Do it.
animated,
That's
get it
awesome.
signed at MegaCon.
Perfect.
What about you? Anything you return to reread?
I read Mad Love several times. Saga. I feel like I enjoy reading those. If we picked up the trades, I'd probably read them more.
Mm-hmm. Silver Surfer.
Oh, yeah. Silver Surfer. Yes. Definitely reread Silver Surfer.
From Dan Slott, specifically.
Oh, I just had it in my head. And it's gone. Little Gotham.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy Little Gotham. And that's just an easy read, right? It's a lot of fun. You flip through it. You get through pretty quickly. But Dustin Wynn's Little Gotham, fantastic.
Another question from Innsmouth is, what is a video game you replay?
Oh, man. Yours is Resident Evil 4.
And Star Fox 64.
And Star Fox 64, yes. Those are the ones that you play the most. You also replay Fire Emblem pretty frequently, too.
Yeah, whenever it really catches me, which most of the games have, why not replay it, try out different marriages? You did the same thing.
Yep, sure did. Still ended up with the same marriages.
You didn't recreate any babies?
I tried, and then I'm like, no, I don't like them together. I switched them back halfway through the game. Or I think I just restarted the game at one point. Fire Emblem's a big one for me. Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Silver are probably the games that I've replayed the most. I'll say Yellow. I've probably played that game through at least 10 times in my lifetime. Ooh, Pokemon Snap. Pokemon Snap!
There you go.
I'm great at that game.
What is our most treasured comic book? I guess it would be not necessarily, I'm not going to go with value on this, but most treasured. Which ones we, I guess, are happy that we have? I'm still going to go with the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul, as signed by Neil Adams. Gorgeous cover by Neil. Not a great experience getting it signed.
It'll be 60 next time.
He's not a great person, but not a nice person, I should say. But his co-creations are great. I wish I could meet Denny O'Neil and have that signed someday, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But I think that's one of my favorites, especially since I did end up getting one of the CGC certified. So that yellow label looks great on that first appearance of Ra's al Ghul. And we've had that for several years now. So that's, I think, one of those that's my favorite to flip through and look at whenever I'm going through some old comic books.
Can you guess mine?
Saga number 1, first printing.
I mean, I do enjoy that one, but that one's not my favorite.
Is it Batman Adventures Mad Love?
Yep. Because, and I love that comic because Harley Quinn's one of my favorite, right? But the whole experience of us finding it was insane. Do you remember when we found that book?
Yeah, it was in pretty much, not the dollar bins, but...
No, it was in, like, the back issue bin, right? But it was buy one, get one free comic day. So we're flipping through, and I found 2 of them, and they sold them to us for cover price.
Right.
So we got 2 Mad Loves, and granted, this was, 10 years ago now? It's been a while.
Yeah.
But it was still worth more than the $5 printed on the cover. So we got 2 of them for $5. And then I think we CGC'd it for, like, a 9.8.
I don't know if it was that high, but
it was really high.
It was, like, higher than we expected.
Yeah.
I think it was about 9.6.
Maybe 9.6. Anyway.
But it had been sitting in the bins without a bag and board, without a bag,
for years.
just by itself.
So someday I'll sell it for a lot of money.
It goes to show that, like, all these people that put them in Mylars and make sure that they sit in the right way so that they don't get banned. It's like, just throw it in a fucking bin, throw it at CGC. They're going to put a 9.6 on it. It just blows me away, especially since I've worked in the industry for so long that I've handled these books that are hundreds and thousands of dollars worth. And this whole thing of like, oh, you got to put on the gloves. It's like, no, you don't. Just know how to handle a fucking comic book.
Put on the gloves.
Like, I remember seeing that on Comic Book Man, and I know it's for theatrics, right? I'm sure he doesn't really wear gloves when he's handling these things. But there are people that will do that. I've sold the first print of TMNT number 1 many years ago, sold that one. And the guy that sold it to, he made sure his hands were clean, and he's like, hand me 2 boards, and he had 2 like current boards, and he was flipping the pages
like
with that.
Chopsticks?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, he was blowing under the page so it would lift a little, and then he caught it with the board, and then he would turn the page, and that's how he inspected the book the whole way. And it's like, man, if you had seen how we handled this, you would have a heart attack. And you know what's funny? The book is exactly the same in its condition from us handling it.
What you don't know is that he reads all his books that way.
It's like this weird tick.
He's got to blow on the pages and flip them.
I'm like, you're getting more moisture in the pages by doing
With
this.
your nasty spit, sir. Glad you bought it.
I'm not spitting on it. I'm blowing. It's like, there's moisture in your fucking, in the air, you idiot. But it's like, yeah, just know how to handle the thing and you're fine. It's not a huge deal. So that's why you can get a 9.6 on a book that's been sitting in the bins with no bag and board for years.
Or they just didn't even care.
That too. Most valuable, I guess there it is, most valuable comic. That's another thing where it's like, maybe I'm going to guess on one. I guess it's the first appearance of Poison Ivy, but I'm not too sure on that. It's not something that I keep up on, like, oh, which one's worth the most? I'm not a speculator. I don't flip this stuff on eBay. I'm a collector. I buy the first appearances because I like the characters, and that is literally it. I'm not going out on Tuesday nights and pulling up, like, Key Collector and, ooh, who's coming up this week? Maybe that'll be someone. I'm not that. I'm a comic reader. Mm-hmm. I read the series I like, and as I buy it, if something happens to be worth something years later, great. I'm still probably not going to sell it anyway, so it does not matter. So I can't really honestly give you an answer on which one's the most valuable on that. But if I had to guess, maybe first appearance of Poison Ivy. No idea.
I don't own many comics personally. I just plan to inherit yours someday. Mm-hmm. But one that I do actually own is Saga #1, like you mentioned. So that's probably my most valuable one.
Personal questions incoming, still from Innsmouth, is do you plan on having more kids?
Depends on the day.
We're like a magic 8-ball. Try again later.
Which day? I mean, that's a real tough question, right? Because some days life is real easy, and some days I'm like, oh man, how do I juggle all this, right? And then I got to carry it. My favorite excuse, because I get this question a lot, I guess, being
When's
a woman.
The next one?
Right. I get that question almost every day. Somebody will ask me that question. And I get out of it real easy by saying, when my husband can carry and deliver. And they're like, ho, 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 ho. It's the funniest shit they've ever heard. And then they leave me alone.
I laugh more at your impression of it than the actual fucking joke. Because that's exactly what they do.
It is. But then they leave it alone. They're like, oh, you're right. It's real tough. And I'm like, yeah, 28 hours of labor tough. And they're like, oh, that's okay then.
A related question is, what's the hardest part of child rearing?
Depends on the day.
What's rearing? Is that like raising? Or okay.
Yeah, raising.
I don't know if it has to do with the birth specifically.
Giant heads is the hardest part of birth, okay?
I think it's constantly being on edge and on work, and some days being at work is easier. I think that's the hardest part, is for over a year being at work, being that it's already like a high stress job, is sometimes easier than watching a child.
Yeah.
So you're not really ever getting a break. Like when work is your break, imagine that. For those of you that don't have kids, that's what, as much as you might complain about work now, that is your break sometimes, is when you're at work.
Yes.
Dealing with those stresses.
After a 4-day weekend with home with Leo, I'm like, okay, time to go to work. Like, get away for a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that's the hardest part for me.
There's a lot of tough stuff. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had to overcome is the change that it puts on your relationship, right? Because before it was just us. We just had to worry about us. Now I have to worry about where he fits in with us.
Right.
And we went from 10 years of just us to now, it's only been a year trying to fit him in. And when you raise a child together, sometimes there's different viewpoints, and we're fortunate to have our parents here and watching him frequently, but now we have their viewpoints too, right? And so juggling one of the best things my dad ever told me is you have to pick what hills you want to die on, right? What things are worth saying, no, this is absolutely how it has to be, or what things do you let go? And trying to juggle those things too. And I call you a lot and I say, oh my God, this happened today, right? And I vent and I get it off my chest, and then I choose not to let those things be what could potentially harm this relationship that we have with these other people. There's a lot, man. Parenting is hard.
Yeah, one of the flips that I'm going to do on what you said is like trying to fit him in. I think he's already in. It's trying to fit everything else in.
Yes, that like, is accurate.
Everything inverts immediately and quickly and constantly. So it's suddenly a complete, your world is upside down. And now you gotta, you've heard it on the podcast already, listener. It's, okay, well, I can't play games. I'm not playing as many games. I'm not reading the hobbies is what you're constantly trying to fit in. So I think that's another portion of it, but it's all a part of that whole experience.
But he's adorable. It's the cutest little stinker. I look at him and say, Leo, do you want to brush your teeth? And he walks in and he brushes his teeth. / sucks all the toothpaste off the toothbrush. But...
yeah, that's mainly what he does.
Or I say, do you want to take a bath? And he'll grab his towel. Or he puts his own lotion on his face. Granted, not very well, and sometimes he eats it, but he tries.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how from like 1 month to the next, he can do so many more things.
Mm-hmm. Just that little brain myelinating and developing.
The next set of questions comes from Twitter user at ManUnited0710, who is one of the hosts of the film Exiles. First question is, what comic series have you enjoyed the most recently?
I've really been enjoying the Archie comics.
Yeah, that's been really solid.
We reviewed it last week, the Wonder Twins.
Yeah, you really liked the first issue.
Loved the first issue of Wonder Twins.
Archie is definitely one that I also look forward to every single month. Batman has been ramping up a lot, especially with Tom King. Heroes in Crisis and Doomsday Clock are still my two favorite ongoings as of this moment. So those are ones that I'm like, yes, I can't wait to read the latest issue. The artwork by Clayman is fantastic in Heroes. And of course, Jeff Johns doing the Doomsday Clock, doing this confrontation between these different heroes as Joker becomes the wrench in the plans. And we still have Dr. Manhattan who's doing his own thing and trying to figure out why Superman coming into contact with him causes him to stop seeing the future from that moment forward, sets up another mystery that intrigues him, intrigues God himself to, how come that is the point I can't look past? Do I die? Does existence stop? What happens? So it's kind of enough to get you as the reader like, yeah, what does fucking happen? You have any theories on this?
He meets Batman at that moment and it all changes.
Much like having a child.
He realizes he loves Batman more than anything.
Next question is also, any upcoming ones that seem promising or have you excited for any particular reason? Upcoming comics.
Batman TMNT III.
Great answer. I think Ascension from Dustin Nguyen and Jeff Lemire is another one that I'm looking forward to. Definitely one we're subscribed to. Right now, off the top of my head, I don't think I have anything. Like it used to be Doomsday Clock for so many months. I can't wait for that to finally kick off, and it did. I know the DC East, I think is what it's spelled like DCEASE, kind of like deceased.
Oh, okay.
But that's a new...
Haha, I see what you did there, DC.
It's like a big event type of book that they're coming out with. That seems to be the next thing after Heroes in Crisis, or maybe it spins off of Heroes in Crisis. I haven't researched it enough. But there's been a lot of hype behind it on the internet, especially on Twitter, with people like Jason Fabok, I think, revealing certain covers and certain things. So that'll be the next thing that I think I'm going to look forward to.
There's another little Gotham coming out, right?
Yeah, like it hasn't been officially solicited, but he's definitely working on something Little Gotham.
So ready. Mail me stuff, Dustin Nguyen. Just I'll look over your art for you and tell you if it's okay.
What if it ends up being that's the story in Detective 1000? It was like a couple pages of Little Gotham.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. Written by Paul Dini?
Yeah.
Done. Make it happen.
And he's never written any Little Gotham, so that'd be interesting to see.
It'd be so cute. There would still be half-naked women, I'm sure.
Probably. So thank you so much at InSmouth_Tide and at ManUnited0710 for your questions. As always, you can submit your questions at any time right here on thereasonsimbroke.com. You can head on over to Twitter and at ReasonsI'mBroke, at Kelli, and we'll include it on the next episode.
Kelli with an I. I don't think we ever mentioned that.
That's true. Like, I wonder, we should probably make another account where it just reroutes, but make the Kelli with a Y.
That's a lot of work. I don't even know. Reroute? What is this? The Twitter rerouting?
You'll make an account and put out one tweet that you pin to the top of the page and says, this is not the right page you're looking for.
This is not the page you're looking for.
And then like a link to the proper one.
You know what somebody showed me this week? And it cracked me up. It's Star Wars quotes that you say during sex.
What's a good one you found?
It's a trap. Or there was one, and I don't know the exact quote, so I apologize. But they call somebody like a smelly, hairy something, and then they say, get in here, or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to have to show you because it was hilarious.
Sounds nerdy as fuck.
It was. It was great. And one person just goes, Star Wars fans don't have sex.
It's pretty good. Let's head into our Patreon shout-outs of the week.
This week, we have an action-packed 6 shout-outs. That's a whole lot of shout-outs. First one goes out to @Innsmouth_Tide.
Sending us questions and backing us on Patreon. Look at that. Superstar Broquette, Innsmouth_Tide. He tweeted out, quote, "Sitting in a diner reading DC solicits," end quote. Living life, taking life by the horns. Hell yeah, you got to read these DC solicits a week before the previews catalog. And I love the previews catalog. But this stuff does come out a little bit ahead of time, about a week or two sometimes before the previews. And it's always neat to see what they're coming out with. And then once the catalog comes out, boom, write it down on that order form, send it to your comic shop and pre-order this shit.
Hopefully you are reading with a cup of coffee in hand, because that's the best way to read your comic books.
That's right. Next shout out goes out to Elizabeth @EpLifts.
Elizabeth tweeted, "Date night, Doom Patrol and wine. I'm a lucky lady."
End quote. Yeah, that is a good night.
Yeah. What kind of wine? That's my question.
They're all winners. What would you drink with Doom Patrol? Since you're a onezier, whatever you call it, Cicerone.
Cicerone is beer. Sauvignon is wine.
Are you a sommelier?
I am not a sommelier because I don't like wine that much. I like white wines. What'd you bring me? Chardonnay the other day? I like Chardonnay. I like Riesling. I like white Zinfandels.
Which would you drink with Doom Patrol? Red wine?
No, I don't like red wine. I guess you would drink. I mean, red wine goes with steak. Would you consider Doom Patrol steak?
No, it's something you got to think of something crazier.
You would have to drink whatever you like if you like red wine. Red wine's very good for your heart. I wish I liked red wine because then I could feel healthy while I get tipsy every night.
How much are you supposed to have? Like a cup?
Something like that.
Glass? Is that the right terminology? A glass of wine?
A glass of wine.
Me coming into a fucking wine class. How much do I have? A cup here? Sir, please leave.
They kick you off the boat. Now, I would love to see you in a wine glass because they would tell you to fill the glass. And I feel like you would fill it to the top instead of the halfway point.
Reminds me of that scene in Spanglish where she's pouring herself the wine and she pours it all the way to the top. She's like, whoops.
Have you seen the wine glasses that fit the entire bottle in them?
No. Yes, I have.
It's hilarious.
Next shout out goes out to Joshua T on Twitter @Drips1963.
Joshua had no tweets.
Got a tweet, Joshua.
He's on the Palpatrain of no tweets.
That's right. That's true, though.
He's just trying to be like me. It's okay. Thank you for your support.
Next shout out goes out to Nick F. 2 Twitter accounts @Jersey Whisperer and @Nick's Nerd News 1.
Nick posted a selfie with a note on his forehead and wrote, quote, "I'm super warm inside," end quote, with the tweet, quote, "me after that hashtag Avengers Infinity War trailer during the Super Bowl," end quote.
See, Brokehead Core, if you like the MCU, you don't have to feel guilty. There are others around you that also enjoy the MCU.
I'm not going to say it. Thank you for your Patreon support.
Next shout out goes out to Julian W. on Twitter @Cage023, that's Cage with a K, and @Lazy Gaming Guys.
Julian streamed a live video reaction to the latest Nintendo Direct.
So if you want a more comprehensive look at the latest announcements from Nintendo, head on over to youtube.com/LazyGamingGuys, and you can see true gamers that game for hours every day. And you can see their reaction on the latest Nintendo Direct.
People who don't have children who can game for several hours.
I used to be this.
You did? We used to play games for hours.
Yep.
What? And I felt like we had no time in life.
What do you mean we still had no time?
Yeah, I felt like there was, my whole life, I felt like there was never enough hours in the day. And now there's really no, and like I had so much time back then. All this time. And I did shit with it.
As they say, like, it's similar to the whole phrase of youth is wasted on the young.
Yes, definitely. Now I'm old.
Final shout out goes out to Antonio A, who, much like you, I don't know if Antonio has a Twitter. If you do, let us know, Antonio. Mm-hmm. And then we can properly stalk your feed and add it to the show.
But you don't have to tweet. It's okay not to tweet.
So thank you so much, everyone, for your Patreon support. And also to decalavenue.com, Jose, who runs the decals where they help at the $5 reward tier.
If you too would like to be a Patreon backer, you can head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke for as little as $1 a month. That's 25 cents an episode. You too can have your shout out.
If you're saying, I don't have $1 a month to spare, but I do want to help out the show, you can also leave us an Apple Podcasts review. We're up to 36 right now, and it takes 2 minutes. You leave a star rating, write in a little blurb of what you enjoy about the show.
This show cool.
That's right, this show cool, and submit that, and that'll be enough to help out the podcast.
But of course, the best thing you can do for us is let your friends know about the show. Reach out to us on Twitter, again, at Reasons I'm Broke, at Kelli with an I. Ask us questions. Send your friends over our way. It helps expand the show as well.
Let's head into our final portion of the show, our comic book highlight.
As we said in the very beginning, our comic book highlight this week is Sharkey the Bounty Hunter, number 1 of 6. This is written by Mark Miller with art and colors by Simone Bianchi.
We ended up going with the Frank Quitley, or is it Quietly? I never know how to pronounce it. But we ended up going with that variant for this latest Netflix to-be-adapted comic book. 6 issues. And this very first one, I had to go ahead and follow Simone on Instagram and on Twitter because this artwork is gorgeous. And you can see videos of him putting together certain pieces and panels. And for this one itself, it is literally about a bounty hunter, just as it sounds. And Mark ends up doing the thing of, in the first half of the book, you become very endeared to the character of Sharkey. You see that he does have this human side to him, even though he is running around the universe, essentially killing people and just fucking women and putting on sunglasses. But he does have a heart, and I think that's kind of the humanizing portion to this. But that's when things get entangled, of course. You have the first big hill that we're going to see. We're looking at the hill, right, in the story of there's this huge bounty that will solve all his problems. And I don't know if I want to... I'm thinking that at the end of it, he will end up saying no to the bounty because, one, that would change the story forever, right? So Mark could never write Sharkey the Bounty Hunter the same if he suddenly became rich, unless he blew all that money by the time issue 7 came out. But in this case, I'm sure it'll be a moral decision to not take the money and instead save someone in this particular group that he's starting to eventually, I'm sure he's going to build. Pacing of the book itself is great. You have what seems to be the first adversary as well by the end of the comic book, but I think the artwork itself was gorgeous. And I know it's a little bit rough in some portions of it, but I think it's just enough to where it's like, all right, well, that gets you far enough in the story. There's parts where you have the multiplied man near the beginning, and some of it's like, well, they clearly did not go over it with line work, but it's like, it's fine. It's all digital, right? That's kind of what you get with that kind of artwork, but it still worked with this, like enough to where I really want to get a commission by Simone someday.
I agree. It was a pretty solid start, I will say. I feel like the formula's pretty standard, right? You've seen it a million times in different things. The redeeming quality is some of the humor that they put in the beginning, the jokes with being bald, right?
I'm like, do I want to shave my head now?
The adversary that we ran into when he's like, I had to do like all these things. And I was like, I don't want to give it away because it's pretty funny. But little things like that, like you said, endear you to the characters. I will definitely give the second one a chance. It's not grabbing my attention as much as some of his other works have. And that's unfortunate because I feel like this is now the third one of his that I've said that about.
Second one with Prodigy.
Right. And I felt like there was another one.
Well, we had Magic Order before that, and then Reborn before that one.
Okay. So I did really like Reborn and Magic Order. I felt like his last 2 books haven't really caught my attention, and that's unfortunate because he now has this Netflix deal, right? So is he just pumping stuff out just to get more in through the Netflix and not working as
I think
hard?
these were done, honestly. Like,
really?
I know people were asking me, like, how's he putting these out? I'm like, honestly, I think he took a shit ton of time, wrote all these out, and then off to the artists and said, here's the package, Netflix. I don't think they agreed to this without reading his entire scripts. They're finished. They've got to be.
Well,
you don't make a deal with someone like that and say, we're going to make your shit into shows. let us know when the scripts are done.
Netflix got money to burn. Maybe they did.
Yeah, but come on. he never has to work for DC or Marvel again. They paid him handsomely.
Hopefully it picks up more in the second issue. Like I said, definitely going to give it a shot. If you're a fan of his other works, I think you'll enjoy this as well.
It's scaring me a little bit because Prodigy, which I loved the first issue of, and we haven't reviewed it since, but like issue 2, I'm like, all right, here we go. And then 3 is like, oh man, I don't know if I think 4 might have come out, and that's where I was like, I'm done. Because it ended up just going off like this weird pacing where it's like, and then now we're here and now we're there. And it's like, we're not character building.
Right.
And that was your initial complaint with the first one of, I don't feel like I'm attached to the character.
I wasn't. I'm still not.
So we ended up dropping Prodigy, unfortunately, and Magic Order ended up ending great. Like, it had a fantastic finale. I loved it. I really like Magic Order. And then Sharkey, I love the first issue. I hope it's not a Prodigy. But so far, based on his previous work, it won't be. Like, the odds are in its favor.
Right.
Would you at all compare this to any of the previous works? Like, that's one thing I like about Mark Millar is this is different than Magic Order. This is different than Prodigy. This is different than Civil War. This is different than Superman Red Sun. Like, there's nothing quite like this. So I know when we were cross-pulling it at the comic shop, I cross-pulled it for Prodigy because I'm like, if you're sticking with that, then you're probably definitely going to stick with Sharkey. Whereas if you pull it for Magic Order, which I know more casual readers are reading Magic Order, because I've heard it from them, like, oh, I'm a Harry Potter fan, I like Magic Order. Makes sense.
Really? Harry Potter and Bondage Magic Order?
It's kind of adult Harry Potter. Like, there's an evil wizard, and they're running around and killing muggles, and it fits. Like, What else are you going to say is close to Harry Potter?
Not Magic Order.
Magic Order. Name something closer to Harry Potter than fucking Magic Order.
I don't know. Why is Magic Order got to be compared to Harry Potter? Just because it has magic? That's magicus, Danny.
They got wands. But this is Sharkey. I don't think it's anything like anything I've read with from Mark Millar, at least.
No, like I said, the only thing that I think is similar is the very base premise of the story, right? Because you kind of got the same thing in Saga with the will, remember? And he ends up picking up that girl and has to take her places.
Right.
So the very core of it, which realistically, if you look at stories, there's very few stories that are 100% original. They all kind of have the same basis to them, which we learned in college and all those classes, right? So as a whole, there's nothing similar to it, though.
Do you get any Lobo vibes?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I opened the first page, I'm like, is this Lobo? What is... It's Lobo.
I gotta talk about that joke where the main character makes fun of someone who's completely bald. And he says, what, do you got cancer or something? And the guy says, well, no, I've been balding since I was 22 and decided might as well get rid of it all. Meanwhile, Sharkey just has the sides
right.
and the back. And he's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like getting a paper cut and cutting off your finger. And I'm like, oh, like, should I not ever go bald now? Because this comic book character, Mark Millar, said I shouldn't. Meanwhile, Mark Millar has a head of hair. So
right.
What the fuck is he talking about?
He's just trying to write Lobo.
What do you think about it? I mean, that speaks confidence, though, to Sharkey.
I think his hair looks terrible. I wish he was just bald. Like, he just wears that gross cowboy hat. And how does this alien know what cancer is? Do they have cancer in his...
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Really? All alien cultures have cancer?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, if they're carbon-based and they're if they're humanoid aliens, I'm sure they can get cancer.
But maybe they don't call it whatever. Yes, all aliens have cancer.
No cure in all these species.
Nope, none.
So there you go. That's what's funny. Like, it doesn't, I think that's another switcheroo at the beginning where I did not know immediately that was going to be the main character. And that's when I'm like, holy shit, kind of an asshole. But then you get later on that payoff of, wait a second, this guy's rough around the edges, but still a good guy. He's got a heart. Right. So I like that. I do suggest it for fans of Magic Order or Reborn or Lobo, especially. If you're a Lobo reader and you want a Lobo series, it's not as extreme as Lobo, but you get the flavoring of that in this book.
And with that, guys, we will wrap up our podcast for this week.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week and every week. And I think everywhere you can find this, as always, is at thereasonsimbroke.com. There are many links on there. So if you are one of the listeners from the film Exiles that ended up moving over because of the interview, thank you so much for giving our podcast a shot. We hope you enjoyed it enough to subscribe. And if you made it to the end of the episode, hopefully you did.
Good for you.
So thanks again for tuning in this week. I am Channeler Daniel.
And I am Emperor Palpa Kelli.
And Brokehead Core. All will be well.